We are in the fight of our lives for the next 2 weeks. I mean, you're gonna hear crazy stories. We keep talking about this. But what we may miss is some of the things that our focus is not on. For instance, that map right there, we'll talk about that. It's actually pretty scary because it shows what's actually happening in America that we're not focused on, that affects our food and affects our way of life. Also maybe our security. Also, we're going to talk about a new proposal. Trump saying, you know what? Forget the taxes. Forget income tax. There's also one state toying with the fact of no property tax. Could this be the pendulum swinging where America returns to its greatness? We have a chance, guys. Now it's time to do it. Also, again, a push for Americans to look to freedom. We're going to talk about what Germany just said about X and how, again, when we want freedom of speech, we're seeing what Europe is doing, and if we don't change from it, what we're going to see is that coming here. It's going to be a crazy 2 weeks. Sit back and buckle in. This video starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to The Max. Thank you so very much for being here today. If you are new to the channel, go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell. Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's okay, but let us know what you think about the content of the video, if you're positive or negative about it, because it helps us grow as a group together. Now you hear the birds, it's a beautiful day on the farm. Our goal is to always talk about things around sustainability, around prepping, around farming, around living a life to where the news that you get hopefully helps you become better, become wiser. Now let's jump into the stories of today. First, let's talk about Trump's new plan. Now he's toying with the fact of two things, and I want you to listen in before you get mad. I think there's a point to what I'm saying. First point, I think 100% of people would agree. Trump is toying with the fact of maybe getting rid of a lot of the income tax. Now, what that means is government would have to cut their spending, which they should. They're taking your money to spend it everywhere else across the world. Mitch McConnell came out and said this week that he doesn't understand why Republicans don't give more money to Ukraine. He believes we were too far behind, and that's why Russia's grown and Ukraine's suffering. So even establishment Republicans want more of your money to be sent overseas. However, we want to help people in America, and the more money we have, guess what? Like North Carolina, you know who's helping North Carolinians and who's helping Tennesseans and who's helping Floridians? The people. People are bringing their stuff. People are bringing their equipment. People are bringing water and propane. That shows that Americans can take care of their stuff and they don't need government intervention. Remember, if the problem is government, the solution cannot be government. If you believe, if you are voting for someone, even if it's on the lower, local elections all the way up to the president, if they believe that government is going to solve the problem, then they are the problem and it won't be a solution. Well, that's what Trump is kind of coming and saying. He's saying, look, we're going to cut the government to a point where deregulation, less tax, and where Americans can be more free. And again, remember, not everybody's perfect. Not everybody's going to do a great job. There's people that's going to get arrested and commit crimes and they shouldn't. But that's why the government should be there to help, but not to run. Here's what I'm saying. If we as Americans are old enough to make decisions and we can make our own decisions for our own bodies and we can do all this stuff that the left and right tells us we can do, why do we believe that we need so much government intervention and that they could be the solution to all the problems when they cause the problems in the first place? So I like the fact that if we get less tax and less regulation, that Americans can be more free and maybe do what they want to do to grow the American dreams for themselves. I believe the more money we have in our pocket, the better that could come. So Trump comes out and says, hey, we may abolish the income tax. He goes back to the fact that if we go back to the times of the early 1900s and before in the 1800s, where we used tariffs, we used taxation on other nations to bring in a lot of extra money, then that would help us get rid of a lot of the income tax that we're causing people to have to pay. Just think, if you made $2,000 this 2 weeks, or you made $2,000 this month, but you had no tax out of it, that would give you a raise basically of about 20 or 30%. Now, your inflation and the cost of goods went up that much. Just think if your paycheck went up by 20 or 30%. That's exactly what would happen for most middle income if they did not have to pay income tax. States are already getting rid of it. Also, there's a state North Dakota, I think, North or South Dakota, I think it's North Dakota, is starting to toy with the fact of getting rid of property tax. This is huge. When we learn to quit taxing Americans, first of all, when they're taxing you, but they can print more money, that's a bad system anyway. Also, they're giving your money away. So all they're doing is they're controlling you by making you pay taxes. So I love the fact that more states are waking up to no state income tax. I love the fact that the government, especially with Trump leading it, is talking about less taxation. That's why the establishment absolutely hates him. That's why McConnell is now coming out and actually being a spokesperson to get rid of the MAGA movement, because he is establishment and worthless as the left too. So what we need is to see someone like Trump get in there, and then Elon and Vivek come in and able to cut a lot of this spending that we're doing, this frivolous spending, and then our taxes will go down. It's amazing how that works. If we don't need to spend as much money, then we'll have more money in our own pocket. That would be pretty big. No income tax. That would be absolutely huge. Now, I'll be honest with you. I think property tax is still one of the stupidest things I've ever heard, because basically we have to rent our land from the government that we've purchased, but we have to keep renting it year after year after year. And if we don't pay that rent, then the government can take it. How did we ever let that happen? Weak men, weak leadership. I think Trump is trying to get us back on the right path. Is Trump the answer to everything? No, but he is a good swing in the right direction, and I'm hoping this pendulum is moving back to normalcy. Less tax, less regulation, and more opportunities for Americans to be free. Not only that, when we as Americans are free, then we have to take responsibility. That's also going to show people that they can't live off the government. They have to work for themselves. If they work, they eat, they take care of their families. That is the American dream I think we all want to get back to. Now I want to show you this map. While we've been so distracted with the election, and I don't want to say that we're distracted with election, but I think it's a pretty big deal that we need to pay attention to. We've missed out on things that's going on in the world that we've kind of taken our focus off of because of our local politics. But won't you look at that? That is a map. In Wokeness shared that. Those red dots, or I say those big red marks all across, they tend to be closer to cities. They tend to be closer to rural areas. They tend to be closer to ports. Now, that makes no sense. You said they're closer to cities, but they're closer to rural areas. They're closer to ports. Exactly. They're all over. If you look, a lot of California, some in Florida, a lot on the eastern seaboard. You know what that is? That is Chinese-owned farmland in America. Why have we not handled this to where foreign governments cannot buy into America and take our lands? What if all of a sudden, I mean, do you realize the pork manufacturers in America is pretty much owned by the Chinese? Do you realize the beef manufacturers in America is owned by Brazilian companies and Chinese companies? Do we understand that? Do you understand a lot of your farmland is being bought so they can grow their own crops and send them overseas and basically take away from Americans? It's amazing. We fought to protect our country, then to turn around and let it get infiltrated at the border and let it get infiltrated by China coming in and buying lands. Now again, let's talk about the administration's two plans. Tim Walz has been to China more than anyone. You think he has a good relationship with them? Absolutely. He's been over there and has consulted and been, he said he's taught over there, but ultimately he's been over there way more than any other politician, especially in this election cycle. Kamala Biden both has not done anything to pressure Xi, and it looks like Xi's going into Taiwan. We're going to let them run all over us and really make new alliances all across the world with the Belt and Road Initiative, because we're willing to cause problems and mischief across Middle East or across Russia-Ukraine situation when we should just not dabble in other people's stuff. What it does is China just comes in and looks like the good guy, and they come in and rebuild and restructure, and they build alliances that now we're losing. You know, the Air Force base we lost in Africa, in Niger? Well, China and Russia picked it up. You know why? Because we're weak and incompetent, especially with the Biden-Harris administration, and we're allowing it to happen. You know, Bagram over in Afghanistan, you know, we lost it. Taliban and China picked it up. Isn't it amazing how we're allowing them to pick up not only foreign places that we own and taking our livelihood and our money and our military, what about now back at home? That map should scare the ever-living mess out of you. If you live close to these areas, just think. That land is not even American-owned anymore. It's not even business American-owned. It's owned by the Chinese government, the communist government. Who is allowing this to take place? People like your McConnells, your Schumers, your Pelosi's, even down to your elected officials in those areas. Shame on them for allowing America to not have the freedom to tell other countries to not buy our lands. You know what happens? This all goes back again to the property tax and taxation and estate tax. Most of this situation where a lot of these lands are passed down and people have to sell their lands to pay for the taxes on them. And now we're seeing the repercussions of that. This is a big deal and no one's talking about it enough. But I'll be honest with you, I'm raising my food. But there's a lot of Americans that's not, and they depend on American farmers. If we keep selling our land to all these other countries, what land are we actually fighting for if they're the ones that own it all? It's unbelievable that our government needs to allow this to happen. And lastly, my plea, Germany just came out and stated, and remember, lastly, my plea, you know how we tend to always follow the trends that Europe is setting. Again, with the migrant situation now, we've been, taken over the same way. But Germany's vice chancellor just came out and said he wants to regulate X. He wants to take away some of X's party, the social media platform, Twitter, because Elon supports Trump. Now, last I thought, whoever we voted for, no matter who it was, we had the right to vote for him because it was our freedoms to do so. It's amazing how Elon has sacrificed so much, no matter if you like him or don't. I mean, like for instance, I'm not a big Tesla fan. I'm not flying to Mars. But he has made huge sacrifices to support Trump. And he knows that if all of a sudden this doesn't go in the way of Trump, then all these countries are just going to keep coming after him. They're wanting to shut him up because he has the freedom to vote for who he wants to vote for. This is what's coming to America if we allow Kamala to win. There's already over 20 million people that's here illegally. 11 of them the government has already acknowledged, and they said that they could possibly become citizens. Our world is turning upside down. And America has always been the shining light. But if America keeps bringing weak leaders into the spotlight and allowing weak leaders to lead us, like I said, the last 16 years, only 4 of them have been under Republican rule. All the rest has been under Democratic rule when it comes to presidency. If we keep allowing weak leaders to lead us, we're going to look like Germany and the rest of Europe. Impoverished and poor, waiting for someone to help us, and at the same time, knowing we are weak and we're suffering from our own problems that we created. That's exactly what will happen to America if we allow Kamala to be president. And I think everybody knows that. They're just so intimidated by Trump and him trying to destroy the deep state and the establishment. They're scared to death of it. But that's exactly what Americans want. Nate Silver and Real Clear Politics, election probability of winning the Electoral College. Now, I'm not talking about the popular vote, I'm talking about the Electoral College. Listen to this. They have it at a 91.9% chance that Trump wins. Now, that's almost too good to be true. But when it's that strong and Kamala's a sinking ship, Trump's gaining momentum, be looking for some crazy stories coming out. I love what this guy said, and it's the sad truth, but it breaks my heart that we're in this place. But to be honest with you, this is probably what we're looking for in 2 weeks. It says, why do we think that violence and polarization is unavoidable? It says, I hope that your optimism of November 5th coming and it all going back to, kumbaya, it's going to be okay, but that's not the truth. He said, if Trump wins, it's going to be worse than BLM times 1,000. They will take the streets and ruin cities. That's what my video was about yesterday. If Kamala wins, everyone knows that it was probably cheated because everyone's come out and said that there's no way Trump can lose based on the numbers that we're getting. Fate would call people to action. So again, polarization. If Kamala wins and we don't act, you're going to see what we just talked about with Germany, with the rest of Europe, and ultimately allowing all these people to be considered citizens now. You will never have another Republican elected until it gets so bad that we'll put ourselves in a depression. You know why Argentina has a great leader now? You know why El Salvador has a great leader now with Bukele? Because it got so bad that their money was absolutely worth nothing, and that people were in bread lines and people lost everything. That's the only way they got good leaders back in. It should not take hard times like that to bring a good leader back. If we elect Kamala, I'm scared to say you're going to see hard times because she is incompetent. And to be honest with you, what they're going to keep doing is the status quo. Printing more money, spending more money, sending your tax dollars across to the world, charging you more taxes and regulation, and taking your rights away. There's only one choice in this election, and we know it. And as Christians, conservatives, and as people who are like-minded with libertarian and freedom, we have to elect someone who wants freedom to stand. Especially when they're saying they want to cut our taxes and just want to make America great. What is so wrong with that statement? To make America great. We should want that. It's time to bring it back. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Pay attention to that Chinese map. That's scary. And the fact that you have these German people that are wanting to tell you that we need to shut down social medias because freedom of speech is not free anymore. It's a big deal. This is coming to America if we're not careful. Actually, to be honest with you, it's already here for most part. You've got some craziness in America. It's time to close the border, start drilling again, build independence, lower our taxes, and bring America back. Thank you guys for watching. God bless.